want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been we've been working to get an interview like this because yeah, we just really want to kind of get stories out there. So I just want to take the time to say thank you off of that.
You're welcome.
So I mean, Ralph, I just want to kind of get like originally, like where are you from? Like where are you originally from?
I grew up in Greensburo, North Carolina. Actually, it's the more rural part of Greensboro. It's called Stony Hill. I grew up in a very, very extremely large family, mom's side and dad's side.
Like how many in total?
Well, there's only my sister and myself as far as my immediate family, but my mother came from 7, my grandmother came from 13. My grandmother had sisters that had more than 15 plus kids. My father's side, there was 5. His mother came from about 7 or 8, 9.
Wow.
So I have a lot of cousins. I have a family full of cousins.
Oh.
And we were all in church, both sides of the family. Grew up in church, you know.
Yeah, that's a lot like mine. I grew up with 10 people in the house. It's not as much as yours, but I grew up with 10 people in the house.
I grew up on a hog farm.
Yeah, I definitely grew up on a hog farm. Yeah, so when did you come to LA and like what made you come to LA?
I came to LA in 2001. Basically, I guess the long and the short of it is I was running from the law. You know, I had been on the East Coast all my life, moved to Atlanta, messed up in Atlanta, then moved to Jacksonville, Florida, messed up in Jacksonville, Florida. And I was like, well, I don't have anywhere else to go. So I was thinking about New York and I thought about LA. It happened to be like February, March. I decided to come to LA. That's basically the long and the short of it. I just basically needed to get out of town. And I knew that no one could get me here.
So you feel safe here?
Well, that was the plan. I do feel safe here now, but the plan didn't have anything to do with safe. The plan had to do with getting out, you know. And you know, I felt like I'd be able to do something here, you know.
Okay. So can you speak on a little bit of like the series of events that led you here?
Okay, well, I think around well, first of all, I've always had an alcohol and drug issue. Always had that, from 15, 16. And my homeless episodes started around 16, 17, 18, somewhere along in there. So my father passed away in 1993. And my mother and I just did not have a great relationship. So after my father died, I sort of kind of floundered because, you know, I was a daddy's boy and he had always taken care of me, had always paid my bills and whatever else that, you know, he could do to keep me out of trouble, keep me out of jail. And so after my father died, I felt like I just didn't have a use to stay in North Carolina anymore. And I was in trouble with the law. You know, serious trouble with the law. And so I took that opportunity to leave. And I got to Atlanta and doing great at first, you know, went back to alcohol, went back to drugs. Well, actually, never really left them, but, you know, I got in trouble with the law in Atlanta, you know, and I ended up in Jacksonville, Florida. Same story, drugs, you know, getting in trouble, you know, legal, you know, things.
What was that trouble? Was that trouble you got in? Was that drug related?
It was basically, you know, I white collar crimes, you know, embezzlement, I don't know, just, you know, credit card fraud, you know, robbery. Larcenies, you know what I'm saying? Because there was no weapons involved, you know. You know, just, you know, things that, you know, anybody who would have done it for the first time would have been okay. But I had a string of such events, you know, and some of them I probably hadn't been, you know, probably didn't get as much, you know, discipline or time as I could have done. But if you string it all together, and this is my thinking at the time, you know, boy, when they get me, I'm gone, you know, so let's just go, you know, and I would hop, and eventually that's how I ended up in Los Angeles.
Okay. All right, so actually going back to the childhood, like what were your like childhood dreams like growing up? Like what did you want to like? What were you wanting to do? Like
I don't
yeah,
know.
what were your dreams?
Yeah, I don't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to be rich because I grew up in poverty, or it was perceived poverty. You know, my father was, you know, a blue collar worker, and I had grown up in a very, very large family who were products of the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and I was born in 68.
Okay.
So they were very humble people. They were basically laborers, you know, not that they didn't have nice things, but they were very simple, you know, people, and I didn't like that. You know, I don't know where I got the notion from, but I just felt like we were poor, you know, and sometimes, you know, I would hear that we weren't rich.
Yeah.
So, you know, the opposite of that is poor. And I didn't know what I wanted to be in life. You know, I just didn't want to be that. I was dissatisfied with you know, the life that they had, you know, blue collar worker. I didn't want to do that, you know. But I had a very happy childhood. There was no abuse. I was adopted from birth, so my parents are not my biological parents, but you know, they took care of me, provided everything for me. I had a lot of family, so a lot of family involvement, a lot of you know, traditional, you know, African American Southern family values, you know, and nothing lacking, you know, nothing lacking.
So like when, like at what point, like after your father passed away, did you like realize that you're on your own and you have to kind of just make like to live on your own?
Right after the funeral, as a matter of fact, all of the pomp of the funeral was over and done with, and so it just ended up being my mother, my sister, and myself at my mother's house. And you know, she said, well, that's it, you can go now, you know. And that's, I guess, when it dawned on me, you know. And the prevailing thought that I had was, she couldn't wait for my father to die to get rid of me, could she? You know, and that's the long and the short of it. And I carried that anger for a while, and I don't think we spoke maybe for about 3 or 4 weeks, you know, after that. And then, you know, they got into a lot of financial trouble, and they needed me and my income to, you know, sort of kind of help them out. And I moved back into the house. I think that lasted a couple of months, you know, 4 or 5 months. You know, it just was horrible. First of all, you know, I was drinking, you know, and my mother did not care for who I chose to hang around with, because, you know, I bar none, you know, any ethnicity, any sexual orientation, you know, it didn't matter to me. They're all my friends. And she didn't care too much for that because she's very conservative, you know. And you know, that was the last time. Well, I didn't leave. I was put out. So you know, I really knew, you know, at that point, this is it. You're not going to get any help from them. It's over and done with. It's time to go.
So how, like, what was the struggle like kind of coping with that, knowing that you had to be by yourself?
It was very frustrating, because, you know, I have well, at the time, my oldest nephew then was the only nephew. And since I don't have any children, and really never planned on having any, you know what I'm saying, that was my kid, you know. And a lot, I would say 90% of, you know, just tolerating my mother and my sister was really because of my fabulous nephew, you know. And my sister was a single parent, and we all lived together. And, you know, my sister and my mother, we didn't get along. So the struggle was very frustrating.
Okay. So yeah, that's actually leads into my next question, was like, how was your relationships with like your family or like your significant others or whatnot throughout this whole process? Like, what?
Well, like I said, I experimented a lot with my sexual orientation. So my orientation is whatever, whatever, and, like I said, my mother's very conservative, what I'm saying? She's a good little Baptist woman, and she's not gonna have all that. Add to that drinking, add to that, whatever else that I was doing that she didn't even know about. People calling at all hours of the night, folks coming by to get me, looking really, really strange to her. And, I don't really care how much support I was giving to that household. She's just, saying, you're just not gonna do that, And it was frustrating because I'm an adult. Not only am I an adult, but I'm an adult that is contributing a significant portion to maintaining this household, And, I suppose I was a little out of hand, but I felt like it was my right, So, but eventually all that, was for naught, and, we decided, it's best to part ways.
Okay, so then after you decided that, like, how long were you then, I guess, homeless, for lack of a better term?
Okay, so yeah, I was house to house, couch to couch, situation to situation, probably for the better part of 2 years. I could get a job, I could hold on to the job for a while, and then something would catch up with me, either the drinking or the drugs would catch up with me and eventually wear out my welcome in this place, and I would go to another situation, living situation, couch, house, bedroom, and it's just a pattern of, getting the job, moving in with somebody, paying the bills for a while, going on one with drinking, partying, and things like that, losing the job, not paying the rent, you gotta go, what I'm saying? I would go to another couch, to another situation, get the job, work for a while, lose the job, what I'm saying? That happened for about 2 years.
Okay, and so you said, like, stuff would catch up with you. You said the drugs and alcohol. So, like, what kind of led you to, like, experiment with the drugs and alcohol in the first place?
Well, a lot of it was just simply being dissatisfied with what was going on with me at the time, because the presentation that I was given was life is about hard work, life is about humility, life is about basically it just didn't sound very appealing. And then here's this other set of folks that I see that, of course, I'm told don't be like them, but they look like they're having a fabulous time, and alcohol was a part of that. You know what I'm saying? So I really wanted to join in with that. So, I suppose when I first started drinking, well, okay, I'll take that back. I've never been a social drinker. Social drinking to me was just being dead drunk.